ladies and gentlefurs, and all in between. You're listening to Zoofonix. Welcome to another wonderful episode of Zoofonix, our second episode.
Heck yeah. So the interview that we are bringing to you today is with Coda, who works under the name B.Trx, which is spelled B.Trx, and they make a lot of electronic music that is kind of all over the place, but I would probably, just based on the way that they talk about it, classify it maybe as a little experimental. And that I really like a lot. I'm going to say that probably about most of the music we listen to in every episode, but you know. And they brought, God bless them, so much good stuff to say about their music. We talked a little bit about what we were going to talk about ahead of time, and so they brought a lot of really good notes that I loved, honestly.
So without further ado, here is Coda.
We are here today with Coda, who is B.Trx, which is, again, spelled B.Trx.
Hello.
Yes, hello.
First question, as always, is sort of how long have you been making music, and kind of like how did you get into making music, and just kind of that sort of whole background?
Okay, so I have been writing my own music since about 2002, but I don't really think that that's the start of it for me so much, because I've honestly been really fascinated by synthesizers since I was like a little kid. And I've had a lot of history of music in my family, and I've always loved them as something to play with. So I think 2002 is when I finally like sat down and said, okay, I really want to write music. I want to compose stuff. I want to produce music. And I started actually trying to figure out how to do that in earnest. So I've been doing that part of it, like the actual writing music part, for a little over half my life.
And then about how long have you been kicking around furry?
Honestly, about as long. I think I got into the furry fandom within kind of a couple years after I started writing music. And I think the very first time I went to a convention, like the first time I went to like a big fandom event, was Anthrocon 2007. And I got to DJ at it. And like really, as long as I've been in the fandom, I've always kind of approached it from the perspective of I'm a person who does music. So it's been tied into it in some ways, but also my music is not something that I consider to be like directly coupled with my participation in that. But it's always been a part of the social experience of furry for me, because I've known a lot of DJs and musicians and other people that write music in the fandom. So
yeah, we're a pretty musical fandom, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely.
It really does sound like you just jumped in, and that's always great.
Yeah, like it was kind of a really big deal to get to DJ at my very first convention of any sort. Like that was how I got into going to cons and just participating in furry in general, was like showing up. And, you know, my thing was, I'm not a visual artist, but I'm in a place of music. And that's also a little difficult sometimes, because it can feel like it's not as easy to integrate those things as it is for someone who draws right. You know, people's characters and can do all this like visual design and world building and whatnot that way. Music for me, especially since I don't really do much in the way of like lyrics or anything like that, is much more abstract and conceptual. That's honestly another reason why I've never really tried to tie the music that I write into like, you know, furry characters or narratives or that kind of thing so much. But socially, those things have been really integrated.
Great.
So the first one is called Towards, and it is from a release that you had last year, right? Called Delete Motif?
That's correct, yes.
Do you want to preface it?
Sure, yeah. So real quick about that release. So that was an EP that I released on Bandcamp last year, actually around the time of there was a Bandcamp fundraiser for donating to organizations that supported trans rights. So I actually got that release together to release on that weekend that all of Bandcamp's proceeds were going to that organization. So I actually have some feelings tied up in that release around, kind of my own personal experiences there.
I guess we'll give this a listen.
All right.
All right. Here it is. 2 words.
Okay.
All right, so that was Towards. Do we have some hot takes? Right at the tail end of that one?
All right. Do y'all want to go first, or
I have one hot take, and I don't know why, but this feels like a laboratory to me.
I didn't think like Portal, but I was just thinking like science.
I was actually kind of thinking of, the Akala lab in Breath of the Wild, the one on the north side of the map.
Oh, yeah.
That's fascinating. So actually, I would love to respond to that. That wasn't one of the things that I was thinking about necessarily, or that I put in my notes, but there's interesting context there insofar as I tend to think about my room where I have all my like gear and just all my stuff. I often think about it as a lab. So, I mean, that's a thought that's crossed my mind a lot. I didn't tie it specifically to this song per se, but it's really interesting that you bring it up. Personally, a lot of the things that I think about with this song, and I'll say real quick that I almost never set out to just write a song about something. I never sit down and say, I'm feeling this, I'm going to write a song about it.
Right.
It's far more common that I will sit down, write some music, it'll go somewhere, I'll sit down, make something, and I'll end up with some music, and I'll listen to it a lot, and I will think about, what does this song feel like to me? Like, what do I tie this to? Having done that with this song and many of my songs, because I frankly tend to sit around and listen to them a lot after I've made them, and this to me I associate with like stuff on the horizon, like really difficult things that are coming, that you're like preparing yourself for. And I'm a person who needs to really, really prepare for hard things a lot. I needed a lot of prep for this interview, like, what kind of stuff are we going to be talking about? But more generally, just I need to really psych myself up to do something hard. And when I listen to this song, I think a lot about how during some of the more kind of low-key parts of the song earlier on, they're not very like emotionally uplifting, not till you get to like later parts of the song. And it really reminds me of the feeling of like when I've got a little bit of anxiety about that thing that's coming up, this tough thing. And in particular, around the time that I was doing this song, I was in a spot with my family that kind of lives on the other side of the country from me, and how we've had some trouble like communicating. I came out as trans a few years ago, and my family's supportive, but it's, just the distance, and that has kind of like made it hard for me to connect with them. And I really think a lot about these times where I knew like I really want to reconnect with them, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to approach them about it. I don't know what to say. The sort of emotional resolution of this song for me is kind of, it's like the thing has come, like the time has come for the thing, and it's happened, and it's chaotic, and it's hard, and there's a lot of stuff, but it's doable, and you get through it. And I get this kind of emotional satisfaction of like, okay, I have a lot of these experiences in my life, but they're surmountable. So that's a lot of what I think about. I am very fascinated by the laboratory references that you two made, though, and I don't think it's off base at all.
Like sort of the feelings and sort of the story that you put into like your own work always does get interpreted differently depending on everyone else's context, of course.
Oh yeah, and to be certain, I don't want to like, I never want to put out work where it's like, this is the sole narrative,
It takes away so much of the light from it, I feel like, when you insist on something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like this song is not just for people who have had difficulty talking to their family, like that's just what I think about when I listen to it. And it's sort of, that's the emotions that come up for me. But I didn't even come up with that until after I'd listened to the song several times. And I start to make that association myself. And certainly the name of it, Towards, is kind of like, there's that thing that you're heading towards, and it's inevitable, and you're going to get there, and you just don't know how it's going to happen. And if people get that from it, that's awesome. I'd honestly be surprised if people had the same interpretations as me all the time. But if not, I mean, I'm happy with any interpretation that someone gets from it, frankly. And I think just, I'll say this right now, all of the songs that we're listening to today, I did in Ableton Live, and used the push to hardware a lot on several of these. but specifically, I know this song has some like interesting synth sounds in it. And there is a particular, I don't know if you two are familiar with the Native Instruments plugins, but
I'm very familiar.
okay. So there is an ensemble for Reactor called Rounds. I think it's called Rounds or Round. And the way it works is like you can set up a bunch of different synth patches, and Rounds will alternate between those synth patches on different MIDI notes.
Oh.
And each of those patches can have different settings, like different transposition or like, you know, different pitch or panning or filter settings or, you know, so you can have all these different sounds that it is cycling through. And I actually got a lot of variation on the melodies by doing that and having it like sometimes play a note at a different transposition at different occurrences of it playing that note in the pattern. So that was a thing that I think that's the only time I've really used that plugin in that way in any of my songs, but I loved the effect that I got from it. And it really provided some interesting variations for like the main like hook or the main melody of the song that's kind of running all the way through it.
All right. So we'll be coming up to Almost There.
Yeah, which is the last song on the same album, if I'm not mistaken.
That is correct.
Nice. All right. And is there any preface for this one, or are we just going to go right on in?
I don't well, okay, I will say this. So this is actually based off of a much older song of mine called Kings that I had done. Gosh, I worked on that one in probably about 2012 or so. And so this is actually me going back to that old project and basically bringing it into my current style. And really it's me taking, you know, music that I made kind of pre-transition and recontextualizing it. So that's something I've always found interesting about this one.
All right, let's give her a listen. That was Almost There.
I would love to know what you two thought of that one.
I have absolutely no notes on it other than the fact that my cat did try to shove his head into the laptop while it was playing, which seems like high praise.
Very high praise.
I take it as such. I definitely take it that way.
Like, I would just say it's just sort of very relaxing. I mean, I know that's pretty vague.
That's good though. Like I think a lot of the stuff I do tends to be pretty relaxing. And I also think of this one, it's kind of an anthem too, but it's like a relaxing anthem.
Yeah. Felt like it was also very precise and like especially when it comes down to compression involving the kick.
I want to say that, as I mentioned, I think before we listened to this is a revisiting of an old song of mine. And that song was, or that version of it from about 2012 or so, has a very different vibe to it. It's a lot more melancholy. So if you remember in kind of the beginning of the song, there's a lot of that like sampled guitar, and it's kind of more, I mean, it's more melancholy. That's how I think of it. That was kind of the whole original song, as it sort of had that kind of vibe to it. And this was me coming back to it and really kind of paying attention to all the details from the first time around and keeping what I really liked and getting rid of the stuff that I didn't. So this has had a lot more kind of scrutiny placed on it than some of the stuff where I just kind of sit down and do something and that's the song. And also, really, frankly, my Ableton Live-based work tends to be stuff that I pay a lot more attention to the production on. When I do stuff on hardware, it's a lot more kind of off the cuff. But I really want to say that this song, to me, emotionally is a very, like, I can relate it to the first song we listened to, Towards, by saying that it's kind of the, if there was that hard thing that I was scared to approach and, I was going through it and everything and it was hard, but I accomplished it and stuff. Almost There is like kind of looking back at the trials that you've gone through in the recent past and going, I can do this. I have made a lot of progress. I've come a really long way and I can keep going. That also, to me, relates a lot to the fact that it was this old song of mine from before transition that I really liked, and one of my favorites from that time, certainly, on an old album that I never really released because I, finished it and then transitioned and kind of had to rethink about how I approached my music and everything. But this is like, okay, I have overcome these things, and there is a change in the chord progression and midway through the song that really, I think, changes like the emotional character of it a lot. And to me, I kind of associate it with, okay, now I'm moving forward.
Yeah, now that you mention it, I do really see that.
And like some of the stuff from the beginning of the song is left behind. Some of a lot of the elements get kind of swapped out for things that give it a way more uplifting or kind of empowering feeling. And I think I mentioned earlier that I like describing this as like a relaxing anthem because it's not about tenseness and anxiety. It's more like I think of more like a feeling of confidence. And, a technical thing I want to mention here, actually, a production thing. So something present in the original and this one is that like sampled guitar and those little sampled like vocal clips that come from the song Scars on Land by the band Kings of Convenience. And that song actually is very melancholy, like extremely melancholy. So I really liked being able to take a little bit of vocals from that one and turn it into this like kind of cool, uplifting, like lead melody almost. And I like being able to sort of transform the emotional character of that.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the vocal samples, and that kind of leads us into the next song.
All right.
Which I don't think know how to pronounce.
Is it like guirare?
I'll be honest with you. I don't know how to pronounce it either. I think I usually pronounce it like guirare, but I don't know. I've not really talked about it to people much. Like I haven't like tried to describe it to people, so I've typed it many times. It's it means heal in Italian, like heal like you are healing, I don't speak Italian. I am Italian, but I don't speak it. So
I'm about to ask.
I'm probably
Google.
not an authority on how to pronounce that.
I'm going to ask Google. It's kind of guirare.
All right, I accept that.
Okay, all right. So other than looking up how to pronounce it, do we have any other prefacing to do for this one?
Let's just go right in. Okay.
Okay, so let's...
Here we are.
Here we are.
I again have one take, and that was a bop. Oh no, I did it. It was me.
You said you did it twice now.
I did.
I mean, it's just like an event, like an 80s PG movie where you get one or two F words, like Adventures in Babysitting.
No one can ever swear again.
I mean, you certainly haven't offended me, so I'm fine.
That's what I get for writing that down in my notes.
So it is a bleepin' bop, if I heard you correctly.
Yes, that is accurate. I actually wrote jam and then crossed it out and wrote bop over it.
Yeah, this is much more upbeat. I also noticed a lot more the way sounds were sort of melding together. There's a bit of depth of field, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I will say that this song is of a type of song that I write sometimes that is just sort of taking a bunch of layers and like taking loops and just like kind of piling stuff on and like layering stuff over other things and
like
kind of building I feel pretentious saying this, but a soundscape of all these different sounds. And in this particular case, I got primarily, if I remember correctly, there might have been some other things in there, but primarily I sampled a song by Sufjan Stevens called Carrie and Lowell. And that's another one kind of similar to the Kings of Convenience song I sampled for Almost There. It's a really kind of melancholy song. And I took that and pitched down those vocals from it to kind of turn it into more of a synth or more of just an instrument. I can't really explain why, but I got a certain emotional impact from that, from the sound of having it pitched down. And I have the progression is pretty much just based off of playing those samples at like two different, like playing it and then transposing it to a different note. And that's just sort of the progression in it. And I just layer synths on top of it. It's this swell that emotionally, and actually there's kind of some similar things going on here as there are in Almost There. This song to me, I really associate with resolution and healing and sort of looking back. And this, of course, was a song at the end of my first album, Coda. And it fills a similar place as Almost There does on Delete Motif of sort of, hey, there's all this kind of like, there's these difficult things that kind of hurt. There's healing, there's resolution. And I always imagine this being like, you've just watched a movie and kind of the credits are playing and the characters have kind of like resolved things or they're moving on, even though difficult stuff happened. And this, I don't know, I associate this song with that for some reason.
I can feel that.
I do feel that. Because I did put this one as definitely has a lot more of a straightforward positivity to it.
Yeah, when I put albums together, I like to think of like an emotional arc to them, and I try to end them with something that feels like it's resolving or providing closure. I like having like this, like I think of, I don't know if you've seen those kind of like drawing tutorials where they talk about like lines of motion, I think, and I have almost something like that when I'm sequencing an album, like putting stuff together and even thinking about what to call the songs. Like I try to have a narrative arc to it, at least for me. And people are going to get all sorts of different things from it, I imagine, and they're not going to necessarily interpret them the way that I do. But at least for my purposes, I want to have in mind like that arc.
Yeah, so I take it that you're probably more into like concept albums as opposed to like a series of singles.
I love both of these things, and I was a DJ for several years, so I definitely lived in the world of like singles and music isolated from context all the time.
Yeah.
But like I do love concept albums. I do love albums that tell a story, even if that story is kind of ambiguous. I love like thinking about what's the story of this album. And I've also gone through a lot of really hard things, and so when I put those albums together, I like to have in mind like what stuff have I been going through that I want to, what does that arc look like ideally. And the challenging thing about that is I don't tend to sit down and intend to write a song a certain way. So I don't think this is going to be a song about that time that this happened. So as I'm putting the album together, I'm like trying to retroactively fit the songs that I have written into that narrative. I'm like, how does this song fit into this? And so I start to kind of adapt my own interpretations around what this arc might look like.
And that sort of answers the question I was about to ask, which is, do you tend to like write a bunch of songs and then go, it's time for an album, and try to find a way to fit them together? Or do you tend to have like a sort of a vague idea for an album and then see if you have anything that fits?
So I'm the person who does a concept album, but kind of accidentally. So like it's a concept album, but I realize that at some point in the process that it is that. I will start off having like 3 or 4 songs that I've done in the recent period of time and go, I think maybe I should start putting something together. And as I do this, it's like I will spend months listening to those over and over again, thinking, do I need to tweak these songs? And I will be in that period of time also just writing stuff because I feel like writing something. I want to get out the music equipment and write something. And then usually if I like what I made, I start thinking, does this fit into this album that I'm working on? Do I want to try to fit this into that? And sometimes I don't. A lot of the time I will try to find a way, how can I work this song that I just started into this project that is now going? And I do it in this very iterative, very gradual, very ad hoc kind of way. I don't sit down and go, this is going to be the album about this. But at some point in this process, I might come across a phrase or an idea, like a concept that I'll think, oh, I could probably adapt this to the album. This is how I could here's how I could kind of create this narrative. And a lot of things I do are very unintentional and I interpret them after the fact.
That's fair. That's always very fair.
And also deeply relatable, because when I write music, I'll be like halfway into a song and it'll be like, oh no, this is about this.
Right. Right. No, I've definitely been there too.
So, let's see. Is there anything more technical or whatnot, or we...
Honestly, I guess one more interesting thing about this was one of the first times that I had ever attempted writing a song while other people were around for it, or I did this on stream for a few folks.
Oh.
I was really anxious about it too because, I'm used to doing a lot of stuff in, with the exception of like DJing, I'm used to doing a lot of stuff in isolation and kind of like a place where I can just sit and loop something for hours and make small gradual tweaks to it if that's how I'm feeling. In that kind of context, you really have to just do stuff and just go for it and not think too hard about it. So I actually got a bunch of songs together in a playlist that I was like, maybe I could sample these songs. And I ended up sampling that Suf John Stevens song and just started building stuff around it. And that's also a bit why it has the construction of being just a bunch of layers that kind of swell over the course of the song. Is I wrote it kind of ad hoc, just sitting there. Okay, here's the sample I'm starting with. I'm going to build a song around it. It was really fun to do. I'd like to do more of that stuff, definitely. But I have I can have some performance anxiety about writing music, even though every time I sit down to do it, it comes to me really well a lot of the time. But I get really anxious that if other people are watching, I'm going to get stuck and then I'm going to feel really weird about it.
All right. So with that, we are going to our last but not least song, Fireworks.
All right.
So what you have to say for yourself?
So Fireworks, I just want to be clear here that it does have, it has a sample in it. I mean, it has a sample running through the entire thing of literally fireworks and a few people. Those people are actually my good friend, Benjamin Burns, also a musician, good friend of mine from Minneapolis. And he and I have known each other for most of the time that we've been doing, or that I've been doing music anyway. And he made a bunch of field recordings of different events in different places, and he was sharing them around, and I ended up using this one and kind of building a track around it. I'm not in that recording in any way, but a very good friend of mine is.
All right, so let's dive into this, shall we?
Mm-hmm. Let's go. like this one a lot. It's so it just is so.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right to me.
Definitely, I don't know, how would I put it? It feels like there is some sort of distance in there.
I could definitely see that.
Well, I mean, like, I was sort of feeling that with how the music is, synths are a lot more like subdued. It's just kind of a disconnect from, fireworks or whiz, bang, boom. And this is like this whole field. I feel like, there's a couple friends laying on a field, just like, and watching the fireworks in the distance and just quietly enjoying company.
I actually really, really like that description of it. Like I mentioned before we listened to it, the sounds of the fireworks and the people talking were from a recording that Ben made during a fireworks display, and he was there, I believe, with his wife, Christine, and some of her friends, and she's really into hula hooping, like, as a thing.
Okay.
That's definitely a thing that people do and are into. Like, there's hula hooping clubs and that kind of thing. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know that she's really into it. And Ben was there recording just the sound of everything going on, just to kind of like get some sample material for like using in music. And like, she was there doing hula hooping, her friends were there, he was taking photographs. I used to have some of the photographs from it, but I don't think I have them on. I haven't seen them in a long time. He was there just kind of like documenting it and hanging out, and so he was having them like get into like the frame of the camera while he took like pictures, and he took pictures of them, fireworks, and so it's just kind of like a just a documentation of this event that happened. I definitely didn't write my song like around that context necessarily. I mean, I knew both of them obviously, and I knew the context that he made the recording in, but I have a really hard time talking about the emotions of this one more explicitly, like with some of the other ones, because what it represents to me is more something that I don't really have good words for, that this song was actually a good representation for, that like I use in place of that. In the way that it's produced, like there's a lot of reverb, there's like distortion, there's all these different sort of effects that give a sense of space. And I almost think about how much I really like, especially in when I was much younger, whenever I'd play like a video game or something or read a book, there was always aspects to the narrative or the setting that like were not presented to me as the person playing or viewing or reading or whatever. There's always like the implication of the world that this takes place in, and sort of like I can think specifically about like maybe like old NES, like racing games, or you see off in the distance, you see a little like city or an island or something. And I'd always think about those scenes or those places off in the distance, and I'd think a lot about what they were like, but how you never really like see them explicitly. Like you always just see them at a distance. In a similar kind of way, this is sort of like there's a little bit of a window into this event that happened in a particular place and time, but you don't really have a lot of context for it. Like you just get these little pieces of that. Also there's emotions that I can't really describe very well. There's feelings and memories that I can't really describe very well, that like I feel like I have kind of a glimpse of that when I listen to this, but I couldn't really tell you, like almost kind of like a dream. Like you can kind of like talk about maybe how a dream felt sometimes, but it could be really hard to really describe the world that it takes place in. It's almost like the emotions there exist outside the frame of it. Like they're not fully represented. It's kind of, this is just sort of a slice of it or just a glimpse of it. And more on sort of the production or technical level, this song is pretty much just a loop. So there is just like the synth patterns and everything just loop throughout the entire song. And then it's got that sample playing over the whole thing. The thing that changes throughout the song in terms of the actual melodies is mostly just the effects and like the filters and whatnot. I remember sitting there just kind of like listening to it and then just taking my mouse and just sort of like tweaking knobs and stuff, and I just recorded all that. I never really went back and even edited that much. I just kind of went, okay, so I recorded myself, messing with the effects and the reverb and whatnot a bunch, and I like how that sounds. So there's the song pretty much. And there is another version of this where I actually took some of those fireworks sounds and cut them down into smaller samples and made drum patterns out of the sound of the fireworks themselves. And I gave it more of like a conventional song structure. Like it has the same kind of ambient beginning, and then it goes into more of like a conventional like electronic song. And I've been realizing that the ambient version really, to me, just has a lot more of that sense of here's all these experiences and places and emotions outside the frame. And I realized that sampling the fireworks and stuff to make drums was really cool. I was really proud of it, but I really like the ambient version emotionally a lot better. And that version, I think, is going on an upcoming release of mine.
So tell us a little bit about your kind of upcoming things.
I have no idea when my next album is coming out because it's not done yet. So I haven't tied myself down to a date yet. So who knows what will be coming out around the time that this podcast is posted. But I am currently working on a new album called Super Hot Light. And that is an album that the last track we listened to, Fireworks, at least currently, as I'm working on the album, I'm planning for it to be on there. And maybe if I don't have it on the final track list, maybe I'll release it. But currently it's slated to be on that album. And Super Hot Light, most of this album is frankly stuff that I've done with a very different process than the music we've listened to today. Because between the time that I did this music and now working on this album, I started really getting into hardware sequencers and synths. A lot more than I had in the past. So I have started using a lot of gear by a company named Electron. They have been releasing for many years now kind of their own take on hardware sequencers. And one of the really popular pieces of gear that they have out right now that came out last year was called the Digitact, which is kind of a small black box. It's a drum sequencer and sampler. And I got one of those last year, and I really, really fell in love with the workflow of it. It's very, very hands-on and very kind of, works really well with my process. And so I started getting into more of their gear. And I also have something that was released more recently by them called the Digitone, which is similar to the Digitact, but instead of being a drum sampler, it is an FM synth sequencer.
Nice.
So I've been really, really, really excited about making music with this kind of gear. It's also something that lends itself really well to live performances. So a thought there was like, I'm going to write music using this stuff, and also it's going to be already set up in a way that would be really easy to do in a live setting. Because I'd really like to get back into doing more live stuff, but instead of DJing, more like performing original material. So this album, Super Hot Light, is, I would say, about 90%, at least 90% stuff that heavily involves this kind of gear. And the involvement of Ableton is less on the composition side and more on kind of the arrangement and like mastering side. So that's something that is coming along pretty well. I have a lot of songs written for it already, and I'm getting to the point where I want to start buckling down and going, okay, so what's the track list on this thing? Let me sit down and actually finish these songs. That's probably all I got to say about that right now, but I really, really appreciate being able to share this stuff with you guys and talk about it, and frankly, just hear your interpretations on these songs, which in a lot of cases were very different from mine.
Got to do our hot plugs now, I think. So you keep a Twitter.
I do.
I think that we decided we were going to do B.Trx, which has very many underscores just right in a row.
Yeah, so that Twitter is B__. There are two underscores. TRX, and that is where I've been putting my creative work. I also post some videos of me doing stuff with those Electron boxes on there if you want to see what those are like. And also I've been posting visual artwork, since that's a thing that I've been getting into, and I'm doing some work on games, and I post that stuff there. So it's kind of a like creative work journal for me.
And then I know that you also have, and this is nice because it links to literally everything. You've got your B.Trx.studio, which is B.Trx.studio. And that just has links to everything,
yes,
which I'm a big fan of for that reason.
Yeah. So if you want to find me places, B.Trx.studio is a good way to do that.
And then you've also got one of your albums is on Spotify. Is that right? Just the one?
Just the one. I actually need to figure out distribution stuff for getting everything on there. But yeah, my first album, Coda, is on there. Eventually, I'd like to get Delete Motif on there as well. Both of those are on Bandcamp, which is B-Trx.bandcamp.com.
Nice. And then I know that they're also both on SoundCloud.
Yes, no, they're on there as well.
It's a B-Trx, it looks like, in the URL. And then you can search it, I think, with and without the dot.
It is B-TRX on SoundCloud as well.
All right, beautiful. I think that is all of the business, unless you can think of anything else.
No, I'm good.
Thank you very much for being our second guinea pig while we're figuring out kind of what this show looks like. And
of course, no, this was awesome. I honestly, it felt great to be invited to be a part of it. And the last time I did something like this, it was about 12 years ago. So
wow,
very different place in music then. So
yeah, in music and in life too. I feel like probably
absolutely, yeah, in several ways. So.
So again, thank you for coming, and
absolutely.
And this was Coda.
All right, so Coda had a lot to say. Most of my thoughts kind of are about the way that they talked about the first song. Full disclosure, we are recording this 2 or 3 weeks later, and I don't...
We had reflection time.
Yeah, but I also didn't look at my notes, so I don't remember what any of the songs are called. Oops.
Congrats.
The first one, they talked about kind of how they retroactively applied meaning to that song of being trans and
moving towards a direction.
Yeah, and
that's the name of the song.
Yes, it is. It's towards. You're right. And kind of working on their relationship with their family after coming out and moving away, and a lot of that really resonated with me. I am also trans, and I live with my family, and it's still a whole thing that is constantly being worked on, but that looks okay going forward, but we'll see, And I really resonated with the idea of maybe not having a strong idea for what a song will be beforehand, and it kind of Katamari Damacy
it just keeps rolling on. You just keep collecting feels.
Yeah, and it collects meaning as it goes on, as you work on it and afterwards. That feels very familiar to me. All right, so we, as always, are going to have all of the links to their songs and their SoundClouds and their Twitters and all of that in the show notes, and that will include links to individual songs and all the places you can find them, which in this case do include Spotify. And we keep a SoundCloud, a Twitter, a Tumblr, and a Facebook, all at Zoofonix, Zoofonix. And our website is zoofonix.com. It's spelled that same way. And you can find the show notes at our website on zoofonix.com, and it should also show up in your podcatcher, but I don't use every single podcatcher, so I can't say for sure. Hey everybody, it's Jacob, just doing a quick little interjection here. I wanted to say that Coda got a new distributor, so now both of their current albums are on Spotify, and we are on iTunes, and you can also find us on Google Play and Stitcher. We got those all sorted out.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and to everyone, whenever you're listening, have a good everything.